Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my photo chat live stream where we come together as a community and talk about photography. And as always, this is an open Q&A, so if you have any questions or anything you want my opinion on, I'll be happy to share that with you. And as always, I like the audience to drive the conversation and catch up on some of the things that I've been doing. Um, we had our big 250th celebration yesterday here in the US. And thank you for the emails. I got one from uh, um, Kenny, I think it was. My God, I can't remember. Anyway, I did get a few emails uh, wishing me congratulations or wishing, I guess, the country. So I appreciate that. And also, thank you for the audio video check. I got a comment last week about my audio was too loud, and I think that's because I had the mic going directly via Bluetooth. It wasn't on, I normally go through the jack, but somehow the mic connected that way. But hopefully the audio is good. I'm checking my levels. I was checking my levels before I started today, so I'm between -12 and -14 on average. So for those of you that are in the audio field, hopefully that sounds right. And also, photographically, I've been doing some dragonflies and a little bit of birding this week. Um, because there's so many dragonflies out right now. I thought I'd give it a shot. And uh, for dragonflies, what I'm finding generally it's sunny. It's very hot here right now. But you're in very good lighting conditions, generally speaking. But you want to follow the same ideas that you would for birding. And I was trying to compare the bird detect with animal detect, uh, when trying to use the continuous autofocus tracking in my OM3 or OM1. And I didn't see a lot of difference between the two. The animal detect seemed to work pretty well. Uh, and the bird detect also worked pretty well. I would have to give a slight edge maybe to the animal detect. Um, so uh, if you're using continuous autofocus with subject detect, I'll recommend animal detect, but try both and see what your results are. And for shutter speed, I shot most of them at 1/3200th of a second. And uh, I think ultimately that was a little bit too slow, unless they're, on a leaf or something, just sitting there. But dragonflies in flight, uh, I experimented a little bit between like 1/640th of a second. I was shooting at mostly 300 millimeters or more. Uh, but between 1/640th and 1/4000th. And I found to actually freeze and get the least motion blur, like 1/4000th is probably the the minimum shutter speed you would need. Meaning, if you can go to 1/6000th or 1/8000th, even better. At 1/3200th of a second, I noticed a lot of my shots did have a tiny bit of motion blur in them when the dragonflies were moving. Now, what's interesting about dragonflies, I think they're the only insect that can actually fly backwards. They have a really interesting, I watched a video on it last year. They have a really interesting flight, how they fly, right, with their wings. And, they can remain stationary, right? And they're extremely good predators. They have like a 90-some% hit ratio when they go after something. So if you're interested, check out videos on dragonflies. They're really interesting creatures. So that said, I'll share a few that I did this week, and also when I was shooting at like 1/640th, I did get lucky on a couple of shots where I got really nice motion blur in the wings, and yet the dragonfly itself looked pretty sharp. So you can look at those. And of course, they're always on my Flickr and Instagram, ahead of the stream typically. So maybe many of you have seen them already, but I'll share some during the stream. And so And when it comes to ISO and aperture, your aperture is going to be wide open. You know, if you're shooting in full manual, you want to set your aperture wide open. If you're shooting an aperture priority, by default, the aperture is going to be wide open. Uh, or I'm sorry, shutter priority. Your aperture is just going to be wide open because your shutter speeds are generally very fast. So I wouldn't worry about aperture too much. But if you're shooting full manual, just leave it wide open. And then you can use auto ISO, but typically I'll start with auto ISO. And after I get a feel for the exposure, I'll dial in the exact ISO that I want for a particular scene, because sometimes you have some backlighting, like off the pond, that might be really strong, and you'll have to add some exposure comp or just dial in more ISO. Um, so you'll have to get a feel for that, but if you're not comfortable like full manual, just shoot in shutter priority and adjust your shutter speed to 1/4000th of a second and use auto ISO. And you should get great results. You'll probably have to post-process some to get exactly what you want in terms of exposure. And you typically have plus or minus two, excuse me, stops of exposure latitude in your raw images. So you'll be fine even on auto ISO. But the best results are always if you can dial in the exposure uh, up front. So it's very similar to bird photography. It's just the skill set is slightly different in tracking, because you're going to be at like 300 millimeters or more, and you're going to be very close to the subject. So they go in and out of the frame very, very quickly. You don't have like this long lead time where they can be kind of far out, and then as they come in, you track them, and then when you get close, you start taking pictures, right? With dragonflies, if they're far out, you, the likelihood of them coming straight towards you or in a predictable pattern is non-existent. They'll be far out, and then instantly they'll be right in right in front of you or out of the frame. It's not predictable. So typically what you have to do is use pro capture and catch them when they're landing, and you'll find a leaf or a stick that they like to land on repeatedly, like their favorite place to perch in an area. And that's where you catch them. So you focus on that stick, you pre-focus on the stick, you have your auto detect or subject detect turned on. And as they approach the stick or fly off of the stick, ideally they fly off towards you, you can get some really good shots. So um, I'm going to keep practicing. I'll share a few, like I said, I'll share a few that I got in a few minutes. But let me go ahead and get to the chat section. I see a lot of people are here already. And we'll go to the top. Darko, always the first one to comment here. Good morning. Happy July 1st, Canada Day, and 4th for USA. Thank you. And Rob, I trust you're well, either rested or super tired from the events of the fireworks and parties. Yeah, so uh, yeah, I didn't sleep as much as I wanted. I only got like maybe 5 hours. And it was a kind of a choppy 5 hours because they were just blowing fireworks all night, it seems like, and we had a thunderstorm. But I didn't actually go out for fireworks because um, I went last week. There was a local park that did fireworks last week, so I did some there. I think I shared those last week, but it's just too crowded and crazy. I'm just getting too old to get to deal with the hustle and bustle of going to big events like that. So instead I went and I had a nice dinner and dessert with my cousins. Um, just reset my whole week in terms of, calories and all of that. uh, I gotta stop doing that. On the weekends, I tend to eat out, and I eat pretty heavy. But so that's what I did, and I had a good time. And I'll show you one of the pictures from that. Um, I think I have it here. Yeah. So here, here I'm eating this giant, uh, this kind of some kind of shaved ice cream or something with cornflakes and bean and red bean. It's a Korean thing. And then I also ate this blueberry yogurt cake over here, and then just a black coffee. This was easily 1,000 plus calories right here. This I only ate about a third of this, so I have some for this morning or later this afternoon. I might eat some. So maybe only 100 calories off of this, but this I ate a good 1,000 calories. And that's not counting the dinner that I had, fish and chips, which is another 1,000. So I probably ate 2,000 calories on top of I went out for breakfast and probably had a thousand. So I probably had a 3,000 calorie day yesterday. Just insane. Ah, I don't know. I'm a little bit obsessed when I do things sometimes. I like to track everything I do. I guess uh, even when it comes to my photography, I'm very uh, numbers orientated, right? Anyhow, that was that. And thank you for the 250th. And Dark also says, on a sadder note, my home city and its downtown is just becoming run over with by homeless and addicted. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Um, so you're gonna hang up the street photography. Yeah, sad because so many businesses, our photo group hit for coffee and snacks on the weekends and they need more traffic. Yeah. Hopefully that'll work itself out. You know, I know that here in where I live in, in when I go to DC, the homelessness problem, I don't know what the numbers are, but just visually, uh, when I go to the monuments and the touristy places, it's cleaned up quite a bit. I mean, it's night and day difference from what it just was a few years ago when I went. There were tents and people everywhere. But now nothing. You know, and like trash is clean anyway. It's a big improvement downtown recently. Baltimore was a little bit different. When I went to Baltimore, there was homeless people on every corner. Uh, you know, and I'm making assumptions because they're sleeping on the benches. But yeah, it's one of society's issues, right, that we have to deal with. Hopefully in a positive and productive way. And decided to hit up musicians and singers again for photo essays of their events. Have a few in the works. Awesome. And hello from Italy, Giuseppe. Good to see you. And JP says, did the L10 arrive? Any comments on how it compared to the Deluxe 8? No, it hasn't come yet. So, like I said, I pre-ordered mine the day after it was launched. So maybe they sold out immediately from the launch day and are waiting for orders to come in to fill in the next day's worth. I don't know what the story is, but it hasn't come yet. Um, we'll see. I mean, hopefully I'm not waiting months and months to get it because I think people are starting to get theirs. But it looks like it's still sold out everywhere currently. It looked like it was in stock a little bit, like at B&H, for a day or two, and then now when I check, it says pre-order. You know. Hello, Jeff. Good to see you. And scroll up a bit, and uh, the Tough Series camera has a similar styling to the XA. It's similar in size. It's a little thinner though. Perhaps OM System should introduce a Pro Tough with Micro Four Thirds sensor inside with image stabilization. Uh, I think a tough camera with like IBIS, like actually the sensor moves, would be counterproductive. To have moving parts inside the camera, inside a tough camera. So if they do introduce a Micro Four Thirds camera in that size, I seriously doubt it would have IBIS, because it would be easy to damage the IBIS if you drop the camera, so it wouldn't be tough anymore, right? So it'd have to be a fixed sensor. Um, you know, the zoom lens is a little bit different story because it's not moving. Once you set the zoom position, it can be locked in that position. But there's still some risk there because there's moving parts. But it's certainly much tougher than I think an IBIS system would be. You know, I think it'll be the same if they do introduce it. They'll have digital image stabilization, which can be excellent, actually. Like it is in my Ace Pro 2, the digital image stabilization is amazing. It's just virtually like a gimbal. It would probably it would probably have to be slightly bigger camera than the rest of the Tough line. I think more than slightly, if it wants to have any features at all. Um, because, you know, take like the GM1, that's probably almost the same size as a TG7, maybe slightly taller, but you know, it has to accommodate for the Micro Four Thirds mount, right? Whereas a Tough camera wouldn't need to have a mount and a flange distance. So I think GM1 size, it would have to be a GM1 size, uh, or slightly bigger to incorporate a lens that would cover a Micro Four Thirds sensor circle, right? Image circle from the lens. And then to be able to zoom on top of that, that would be tough optically. Um, that would be tough because in the TG7, I mean, where is mine? It should be right here. Well, it should be right there. I just used it the other day. Well, anyway, this will be hard to see. Let me use this. But here's like an XA1 that Anthony was referring to. Uh, and it has a little clamshell. So I'm going to use this one because it's silver. It'll be easier for me. But the sensor is not behind the lens on a TG7 or the TG series. The sensor is actually over here. So it's I use this. So the sensor is, you know, it's not behind the lens like this, okay? Uh, Meaning it's not like in our traditional camera. The sensor is actually this way. So it's perpendicular to the front of the camera because the zoom lens also runs perpendicular inside the camera. So if you were to put a Micro Four Thirds sensor, which is not too different than the size of this memory card, let me see what this measures. This measures 3 centimeters. Actually, Micro Four Thirds sensor is smaller, significantly smaller by 20. Well, a Micro Four Thirds sensor is smaller than this, but it would have to sit over, if it were to sit over here and then have that same sort of mirrored zoom lens. It's not a mirror, it's like a prism zoom lens. The camera would be a lot thicker, right? It would have to be. And then it would have to be bigger to accommodate for the image circle to be bigger. So yeah, the camera would be a lot thicker. And if they tried to incorporate the image sensor, parallel with the length of the body, then the front would have to protrude out quite a bit, right? Because it would have to accommodate a bigger lens to cover a bigger image circle. So there's a lot of challenges engineering wise to do that. And I can't think of any examples of a zoom lens camera that would be compact after you turn it on, right? Because the lens would have to extend. The closest thing would probably be the original the Olympus. What is it called? Olympus had a 1/1.7 sensor, much smaller sensor that had to protrude out. And it had to be even bigger than that. The closest example in today's world would be like the Lumix L10 that just came out, right? Because it would need a bigger battery. That little tiny battery in a tough camera is not going to cut it to power a Micro Four Thirds sensor, because it's a 3.2 volt. They would have to jump to like a 7 volt or 8 volt battery. So that's going to be much bigger. They might be able to get away with like the ones that are like in the EM5s or OM5s. But then I don't know if that would have enough juice to drive all of the latest autofocusing and everything. It'd have to be a really simplified, like the original EM10s cameras. I don't know why I'm overthinking this. The short answer is I don't think they can do it without major compromises in size and weight. They would have to come out with like an L10 of their own. But Lumix has already done it. And then to make it tough and weather sealed, it would be bigger than an L10, I would imagine, because the L10's not even weather sealed, right? Okay, hello Serge, good to see you. And Anthony says, would any of you out there want to see a Pro Tough camera with a Micro Four Third camera inside? Not if the size and weight is going to be as big as we're talking about, like size of an L10 or bigger. I don't think people would be that interested in it. The success of the TG7, I think, relies on the fact that it's very compact and pocketable, right? Like that, uh, which the L10 is not. And good morning, Larry. Good to see you. Tough can MFT, cool idea. Cool idea, but I don't think it's possible. And good morning. Thank you. Thank you for the 5th of July. Happy 5th of July. Okay. Sounds and looks great. Thank you. And Roger, good morning. Good to see you. Uh, and what's my video camera set? Oh, I just use Insta360. I think it's called the Link. It's on sale now for 150 bucks. It's a great camera. It's just a webcam, but it's on a gimbal, so I can do all kinds of controller things. Like you can look at my messy desk if I push this button, I think. It's a disaster because I was out yesterday. Um, so it has all kinds of neat things going on. Anyway, Adobe is buying Topaz. Not good in my opinion. Mm, why not? I mean, if they, because Topaz was doing a better job, I think, than um, Lightroom, right? I think they're a little ahead. So it'll be better for people that are in the Lightroom or Adobe ecosystem. They'll get a better results, and uh, I think it's a great idea, assuming they don't raise the subscription price, right? I mean, it's already kind of ridiculous. Uh, But anyhow, Adobe makes a really good product, but they haven't been, I think, innovating as much as they used to in the sense of like specific tools, right? Uh, I'm not really one to speak on this topic, but I don't see a problem. It's not uncommon practice for companies to buy technologies or intellectual property of other companies that are innovating and doing exciting things, which Topaz was. For people that are in the Topaz ecosystem and use it as a preprocessor for denoising or used it for upscaling, that is a bit of an issue, right? Because when they're not going to get updates anymore, I assume there's going to be a lot of issues. Unless Adobe decides to continue supporting the existing Topaz user base, but that's probably not going to be the case long term, maybe short term. But I think ultimately Adobe users, which, they still control the bulk of the photo editing market share. I think for that base, they'll be happy. Uh, and Thomas is here. Good to see you. And it's a humid 25°C. That's not too bad. It's going to be warm today, though. I think we'll be. I think we're going to be 95 Fahrenheit. So that's 35°C. Yesterday was over 35 Celsius. It was hot. Today it's going to be, yeah, about 30, maybe slightly under 35 most of the day. Anyhow, I've noticed butterflies and cabbage moths so far that are size of small birds. uh, wow. I haven't seen too many butterflies this year. It might be where I'm going, but I haven't seen too many. And good to see you, Henning. And Marcia, good to see you. Uh, and David is here. Oh my goodness. You went to Huntley this morning. That's awesome. I think about it every day because, sun rises at like 5:45 or something in the morning. I could go there, then come back for the stream in time. But I had to sleep in a little bit today because I was up late watching the fireworks on my TV. Um, and you're saying the teaching tough series of camera sensors are done like a yes, it is. It's done like a periscope. Uh, and let's see, morning all, Peter is here. He says, you point out the higher cost of SD cards. What's driving the increase? Well, the headline on that is mostly the manufacturers of memory chips, right? There's about 5 top tier memory chip manufacturers like Samsung, Micron, Western Digital, or SanDisk. Um, and they are fulfilling orders for the AI data centers that are going up everywhere around the world and not really putting any production time into the memory chips for SD cards. So there's very low supply, I think, is what I understand on that end. And then that's driving up the price of all memory storage products, including physical hard disks, because there's less SSDs or the cost of SSDs have skyrocketed. It's pushing the prices on the other types of storage media. But to SD cards specifically, that is the main problem, the way I understand it. And they don't foresee changes coming until late next year, at the earliest, to middle of 2028. Uh, and the reason being is not because demand for AI because they say that AI may be in a bubble right now. I feel like they're just getting started, really, but uh, that there are more chip manufacturers coming online, or factories, chip factories like that fabricate these silicon disks and cut them out into memory chips, are being built and should be ready for production late next year, uh, which will take some load off of the AI demand. So that's what I read, or the way I understand it. So I would say right now, don't buy memory, SD cards, or any kind of storage unless you really have to, if you can wait out another year or so. Uh, However, if you cannot wait, buy as soon as you can, because prices are probably going to go even higher between now and the end of next year. At least certainly over the next 6 months, the initial stock that is available is drying up. And I would say in the next 6 months, buy as soon as you can. After about 6 months or a year, you might want to start seeing if you can hold out and see if these other factories come online and start taking pressure off and being able to provide the, supply side, right? That's what I would, that's my prediction. Anyway, take it for what it's worth. Uh, I've been buying memory cards. I missed a really good deal on Prime Day. I was this close to buying it. It was a Type B CF Express, 512 gig for like 150 bucks from a top tier memory factory. And I didn't do it. Now it's over $200, I believe, which is still an awesome price. I'm still tempted to buy it even at the $200 price point. The the catch is I don't have any cameras other than my Fujifilm that uses CF Express Type B. And what the reason I was considering getting it is if OM Systems, or specifically OM Systems, comes out with a camera that uses the CF Express Type B, I suspect they're going to eventually have to go that way, either Type B or Type A. Probably Type A, it's smaller. Then I will not have maximized my memory storage in my camera, which makes a dramatic difference in the performance of the camera. So anyway, that's my dilemma. I'm debating, or can I wait 2 years before I buy another CF Express Type B car? Because I do have one. I have one that's in my Fujifilm camera. It's a 512 gig that I paid $138 for. And now the price has doubled. Anyway, I'm good with my OM5s. Yes, I was very tempted to get an OM5. I found one brand new from a dealer with the 14 to 150 for $1049. I was this close, but I was like, if I'm going to buy an OM5, I want to get the sand beige color. So as good a deal as that was, I just had to pass. If it was sand beige, it would be here right now in my hands. But it was a silver with a 14 to 150 for $1049. The camera body alone is worth that, so it's like getting the lens for free. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because it's not what I want, and I have so many cameras that will do what the OM5 does. And I just bought the L10, or pre-ordered it. They already took my money, so I thought I would get dibs on the camera faster. So funds are lean right now. That on top of a little fender bender I had, that's gonna cost me. That really hurt. Ugh, and it was my fault. But anyway, Uh, how about a fixed zoom L100 with digital IBIS, size being it needs to be in a tough format? Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that would pan out because uh, that you're talking about something like an, yeah, not an L100, but like the LX, what is it? What is the Fujifilm? The X100. That's a fixed lens with digital zoom. And the other Fujifilm, they're full format. You know, in a 100 megapixel camera and a 40 megapixel camera, certainly you can do a little bit of digital zoom and still have a reasonable amount of number of pixels uh, to get some nice details in your images. But at micro four thirds, even with a 24 megapixel sensor like in the L10, it's slightly cropped down to 20 megapixels already. And that's a very slight crop. If you were to crop again, you'll be down to like 8 megapixels, which you can get away with, but you see where I'm going? I just don't see it. I don't see it uh, any demand for something like that in micro four thirds. You know, the L10 has a digital zoom built in, but I don't recall how many megapixels are left when you do that. And it probably does some internal upscaling. You know, digital zoom, if it just simply crops the image, I'm fine with that. Like in my Sony a7R5, it goes from 60 megapixels to APS-C, which is 26 megapixels, and that's still way more than enough. But if you start with 20 megapixels or 24 megapixels and then try to crop on top of that, I don't know how good that's going to be. And Robert is here. Good to see you, Robert. We went out day before yesterday, so I'll share some pictures from that. And personally, I'd like to see a digital micro four thirds XA like the film camera you showed. Yeah, uh, pocketable micro four thirds with no bells and whistles. That would be interesting. Where, you know, basically we're talking like a GM5 with, or GM1 with a fixed lens. That would be an interesting camera. Like I said, the closest thing they have right now is the X100, I think, and the Ricoh GR4. So I don't know I don't know how OM Systems would compete with a Ricoh GR4, to be honest. Because the Ricoh GR4 is like about this size, maybe a little longer, but it's about this size already, certainly pocketable. APS-C sensor with a fixed fast lens. Why on earth would OM Systems try and compete with that when the GR4, I don't know how well that's selling in terms of market share, right? Is there enough demand for a camera like that? I mean, I know they're sold out and they're expensive, but, and they're really popular with a certain, you know, for street, but I don't know. I don't know. Can OM Systems make like a GR4 but use micro four thirds sensor? Why would anybody buy that, to be honest? Maybe if they can make it cheaper, like $1,000 instead of 1,600. I think there is more demand for it now than there was, say, a few years ago. But I don't know if it's enough demand and if OM Systems could compete with the GR4 at any price. Yeah, maybe they could make it $500, $600 cheaper, but then, will people want it? when they can buy a GR4 for more. I don't know. And Gordon says, hopefully your L10 arrives soon, albeit the OM52 would have been a nice add. Marlene Helma is really enjoying her L10. Yeah, I watched a couple of hers. It looks like it's going to be a nice camera. Uh, I mean, you have to take some of the hype in the initial reviews and things that came out. It is a bit annoying when everybody comes out on launch day or within a day or two of launch day with a video hyping how great the camera is. It sort of tempers the excitement I might get when I really get it in my hands, right? Uh, I think the most recent ones from uh, Emily did a new one recently. That was really good. That was a really good video Emily did at Micro Four Nerds. And she covered everything pretty well. I'm trying to remember, there was one or two things I thought wouldn't bother me that it bothered other people. I can't remember now. When I get the camera in, I'll share with you what I think of it. It's certainly not a camera I need, but I just wanted one. Uh, and it's going to solve a couple of limitations that my Deluxe 8 has. I just took it out yesterday, actually. It's right here. But the trade-off is the L10 is bigger, right? And this takes fabulous pictures. I really, really like this camera. So I thought if I took this out a few more times, I might just cancel my L10 order. Because really, the only thing the L10 is going to add is the the autofocus and video capabilities that this one is a little bit weak on, right? Because I've tried to use it at events where it wasn't a paid event. I just went to some events and I struggled a bit with the autofocus at the event because it was very low light and I wasn't really crazy about the images I got. So we'll see. We'll see. So I think image quality wise, the L10 should be better and ever so slightly, but then the autofocusing should be a lot better. And then I can do video, which I was not happy with the video I got from it. An S9 tough full frame, maybe. Uh, to make a camera, because the S9 has image stabilization built in, you have to take that out. If you look at the DSLRs, like Nikons and Canons, the 1Ds, the the D5, D6, these heavy duty rugged cameras. That's what we're talking about if you want a tough full frame camera. That would be the market. Professional use like that. I don't see full frame tough cameras for the average consumer. Average consumer, if they want a tough camera, they'll get a TG7. Good morning, Robin, everyone. I'm a little late to the party after all the hoopla last night. Hoping everybody celebrated yesterday and had a great 4th. I did. I did. I hope everyone did as well. And Darko says, my Z7 in DX mode is fantastic at 20 megapixels. Basically a Z50 and a Z7 in one camera when you bring FX and DX lenses. Yep. No question about that. And I have great fun with my Pani Z100, even though it's a 1-inch sensor. Yep. And Anthony says, digital XA would be smaller and more compact than a Panasonic L10 to be successful. Yeah, it would have to be. It would have to be. If possible, who's to say the L10 is successful at this point? I mean, they sold out early, but Who knows, right? Maybe in a year nobody will want it and they'll be giving them away. And I was disappointed by the reviews. They were mostly uncritical. Yes. I mean, they were it's hard to be critical on a camera that really does everything well, I think. I think it's going to do photos well, it's going to do video well. And the only criticisms I think were about the size, right? It's not pocketable, right? It's barely jacket pocketable, especially with the lens extended. But it's still a compact camera overall. I mean, 500 grams with the lens, right? Smaller than my OM3. And I consider my OM3 a pretty small camera. Uh, but really, cameras at this point are so good. I think any camera that's released is difficult to be critical. You know, like when the OM3 released, um, there was some criticism again about the size, which I thought was, overreaction, as Emily would say, and criticism about the EVF not being at that price point being five, being higher resolution. But that was about it, right? And some criticism about not putting a new sensor in it, but we're going to be stuck at 20 megapixels for life, probably. I don't know. But that said, uh, cameras released today that are trying to target the enthusiasts, enthusiast type cameras like the OM3, the L10, the OM1, all of these cameras, they're all so good right now. And I would have a hard time criticizing any of the higher end cameras that I have. Like I can be a little critical of my Fuji because autofocus is not as good as my OM3 or OM1 for certain things, and it's certainly not as good as the Sony that I have. But that's a minor criticism. The autofocus is pretty good overall. It it's in focus most of the time when I use it. Uh, but yeah, I think at a subconscious level, when you're given a camera and hosted to an event, then there is some subconscious level that you want to do a good job and you want to be as fair as possible, right? But I don't know. We'll see. When my L10 comes out, I'm not going to review the camera like in a video like everybody does. I'm just going to bring it on here live and just pull it out and talk about it, right? Like exactly like what I did with the OM3. They sent me one like 5 weeks ahead of time, I think it was, before launch. And I didn't make a video. What did I do? I did like 3 live streams, just open Q&A. What do you guys want to know? Because most of the camera was kind of a known quantity, right? Just like the L10. The L10 is basically a GH7, just a few compromises because of the size. Uh, like the heat management is one of the compromises. So I don't understand why I would need to do a review on it. It's just not my style. I mean, if you look at my channel, I don't think I've ever reviewed a camera, really. I've talked about cameras in some videos, but I don't recall actually reviewing a camera. It just, the cameras that come out now, they're just known quantities. There's nothing new and revolutionary aside, say, from the A1 when it had the global shutter. Uh, Everything is kind of incremental, a little better autofocus, a couple of more features, things like that, right? I'm hoping the OM1 Mark III, when it comes out, is a really nice substantial upgrade to the Mark II. Because the Mark II I didn't feel was substantial over the Mark I. You know, it was a better camera, but it wasn't enough for me to jump on, right? Because it would be at like a $2,000 difference or whatever the difference would be. The OM3 is not a substantial upgrade to my OM1. That was a more of a vanity purchase. I just love how it looked. I love the styling, and it inspires me to go out and take photos. So there's more of a emotional reason for buying that camera. Uh, okay, seeing the XA1 is bringing us late 70s flashback. Fully remember working in the camera store, and the Olympus rep brought the XA and the OM2. Both were marvels of the day. Yes. A lot of innovation back in the 70s, right? In cameras. And Olympus was pretty amazing, very compact SLRs and wonderful compact lenses to go with it, you know, and some of the innovation in the metering that they had. Yeah, there's a lot of great cameras back in the film days. Lots of the younger generation love the Tough series, yes. And Shakay is here. Good to see you. I normally only see you in the editing live streams. That's awesome. You're here today. And I often use written reviews more than watching YouTube reviews. They seem more critical. Yeah, because they can, you know, they don't, a video would be so boring if they just went through every single spec, right? Whereas in a written review, you can just throw 2, 3 pages of specs that you can look at, and then they just kind of touch on the, the pros and cons from there. So it's a more complete package, typically a written review. Like I said before, I would love Nikon to have a Z30 with EVF rangefinder style, but good luck Nikon ever considered that. Yeah, I don't know. Nikon makes great cameras. I mean, I'm constantly tempted by the Z3 or the Z6 Mark III because it's on sale all the time for like 2000, right? And it's a terrific camera, but I just don't need another camera. It wouldn't solve any issues if I would, my OM3, my OM1s take care of everything I need to do. Those are the only cameras I need. Everything else was just really no reason to buy anything else other than fear of missing out, gas, or curiosity, right? Uh, like my Fujifilm X-H2, I wish I'd bought an X-T3 instead. Now, if I were to do it over again, I would get an X-T3. Because as much as I like the X-H2 top display and I prefer a regular mode dial, a PASM dial, just the bulk of that camera is offsetting because I'm not going to use it for sports action wildlife. Like my OM1 is what I use mostly for sports action because it has a really nice deep grip. I'm never going to use the Fuji for that because my OM1 fulfills that need. So what am I doing? I'm putting on you know, my shorter lenses on it. And the camera really doesn't need just, I don't know. If I'm going to just put shorter lenses on it, some small primes and stuff, like a 30, 35 f2, a 50 f2, or the 18 to 55, an XT3 is fine for that. So, but anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about that. And Zimmy says, the video specs are cool. I hope you enjoy the camera. Thank you. I hope so. I hope so. Uh, Because if I get that, then I really don't need my Deluxe 8 or my LX100, though I really like those cameras. Even if the Z30 had an external EVF, I would use it more often. Okay, a little bit of a confusing statement, because when you say even if, that normally implies you wouldn't use it more, but you're saying you would. Said I have the XT30, I think. The focus is a bit better, but still not fast. Yeah. I had the XT30 for a little while. Was not a fan of that camera ergonomically or style or workflow. It just, the menus were, they still haven't improved the menus, but the menus were terrible. I didn't care for the mode, the shutter dial, aperture ring thing, all of that. I like PASM. So, but I love the sensor and the images that I got out of it. And if I'd used the camera more, I would be very happy with it. But I didn't use it very much because of just the ergonomics and the menus and the dials. I just didn't like the layout. Uh, but I do like the XT50. But the XT50 has the 40 megapixel sensor, which I don't care for, to be honest. I really like the 26. So that's why I'm thinking about an XT3. I think that had the 26 megapixel sensor in the original, and it's a decent size and weight, and you can get I can get an XT3 for about $800 now, like in mint condition. So it's very tempting. And then maybe I'll get rid of my XH2 because I'm just not using it. And Robert says you sold your A7 IV with a 512 gig CF Express for 2100. The card sweetened the deal. Yeah. Wow. Finally got rid of it. Yeah, not using it much, right? Because it's just like me and my A7R5. I just don't use it much. And I think were not for this channel, being a YouTuber, I probably would have got rid of it a long time ago. I still shop daily. I still shop, not daily, but almost daily. I still shop the original S1R, the Mark 1, a little bit on the Mark 2, because I want to get back in the L mount, and the S5 II, and the S1 Mark II. I don't know, the S1 Mark 2E. I keep looking at these cameras, and I have been for quite a while. The S1R Mark 1 has come down in price enough to where it's very, very tempting. You know, I can find them for 11, 1200. If I can find one in good shape under 1,000, I think I'll buy another S1R Mark 1. I used to have that camera. Somebody gave me this D200. The S1R Mark 1 is about the same size. It's a little bit shorter, a couple of millimeters wider, but it's not much different than this. And I think just taking it out once in a while would not be a big deal. I bought it. I didn't keep it very long. I only kept it like a month when I bought it last time. And, you know, as always, I'm always tight on money. And I was like, if I return this, I can get that, you know, the 1,500 or whatever I paid for it back. And I can use that money for some, you know, living expenses, right? And that's why I got rid of it. But I don't know. I regret it to this day. I'd like to get that S1R back. The S1R Mark II has the better autofocus, but I don't think that's going to be very important to me because I'm only going to use it just because I like the L mount glass. And I picture doing mostly still life with it, street photography and other still life. Um, the I'm gonna take this D200 out today because I had the battery that came with it was dead. It only fire off a couple of shots and it wouldn't recharge. So hopefully the batteries come in today and I can take it out maybe later. Uh, the D200 I think was probably the last CCD sensor that Nikon created. And not that I think there's that much going on between CCD and CCD, uh, but CCD and CMOS, excuse me. Because color science is all in the processing. It's not so much the sensor itself, right? But we'll see. I'll just go out and snap a few images. All right, let me take a stop here and just share a couple images because I'm an hour into the video or the stream here. Because I was talking about dragonflies. So where's my first dragonfly picture? Here's one. Because I showed the tall ships last week, right? All right, the hard drive is spinning up. Okay, so here's the and I'll pop up the EXIF data just for grins. So I'm at 1/3200th of a second, 420 millimeters. I thought this came out pretty good. He's basically, this is pro capture and he's jumping uh, off the stick or flying off the stick. And then this one came out pretty good too. I really like the having two of them in the same frame. So I'm going to try and do more of this type of photography, dragonfly photography, where there are more than one in the frame. I tried a little bit yesterday, but I wasn't very successful. But I really like this one. And then let's see, here's another one in flight. This one is just a tiny bit off. Same EXIF data, 1/3200th of a second. I don't know if I have any at 1/4000. Now this one is interesting because this one is at 1/640th of a second. So I got the motion blur in the wings and I really like this. So if you want to get motion blur, you really need to be at 1/640th and heavily rely on the image stabilization of the camera to keep everything else sharp, right? But most likely this dragonfly was hovering in one spot, and that's how I got a relatively sharp picture. But I love the motion blur on this one from in the wings. And then my favorite, well, we'll get to my favorite last. Here's another one. This one's not too good. It's a little off the focal plane here. And I was at 1/2500th of a second, way too slow. So there's probably a combination of motion blur and focal plane issues on this one because it's sharp back here, but not here. And then this one is not bad. 1/2500th of a second. I don't know why my shutter, I must have bumped the dial a little bit. I shouldn't be at 1/2500th of a second. Like 1/4000th would have been ideal. And then my favorite dragonfly picture, well, my second favorite, this one. I love this one. This is my second favorite one. 1/3200th of a second, wide open at f5.6 and ISO 1600. I just love the two colors with the green backdrop. I thought this came out really, really good. And yeah, lots of nice detail in this one. Now this one is my favorite shot. So this one is with the OM3 and the 75 to 300. So there is a tiny bit of softness that I had to kind of compensate for in post-processing compared to, say, my 300 f4 Pro lens, right? But overall, as an image, I love the colors. I love the composition. I love the colors in the Dragonfly. Uh, so even though it's not the sharpest image of all the ones I've shown, this is my favorite. Uh, this one and the previous one, those two by far I like much more than the other Dragonfly images. But this one is really, really good. Uh, or my favorite, I should say. Calling it good implies that it's good. I don't want to say that. I'm just going to say it's my favorite image of the series. So there's that. And there's some other shots I did here. I got this hummingbird. This is with the 40 to 150 kit lens. I thought this came out really good. And I was at 1/3200th of a second. And I did that to try to keep the ISO low as possible. I typically shoot hummingbirds at 1/4000th of a second, but I was really struggling with my ISO because we were kind of in the shade. So I was kind of jumping back and forth on the shutter speed to keep the ISO low. But yeah, this came out pretty good for 40 to 150 kit lens. Here's another one I took with that lens. This one's also at 1/3200th of a second, ISO 4000. It's slightly overexposed. I could have went to 1/4000th of a second. That's what I should have done. But yeah, the 40 to 150 kit lens. Now, granted, I was only about maybe 3 meters away, 10 feet from the hummingbirds. So I was pretty close physically, but these are pretty good shots of hummingbirds. There's another one. This one not quite as good. This was I was at 1/4000th of a second, but you can see my ISO is 6400. And these birds are so small, you know, I had to crop in quite a bit. And that's when I kind of felt like, this ISO is a little high to be trying to retain the fine feather detail. So that's why I was dialing back down to 1/3200th of a second. So I could maybe shoot at ISO 4000, ISO 3200, and then a little post-processing, and I can get a pretty decent image. So that was my thought process, right, in my settings. Let's see. This is another one. 1/3200th of a second, ISO 6400. So these shots I took a little bit before that last one when I was making adjustments. This one's not that great, but there's the shots. And then I did some high-res shot mode stuff. This one. This is with the 75 to 300 high-res shot mode. And this is not cropped at all. This is the full image. So it's 50 megapixels. So there's lots of detail in here. So the 75 to 300 at 300 millimeters, wide open, high-res shot mode, not cropped, right? So again, you can see a little bit of the softness. Part of this is the post-processing, but there's a little bit of softness around the edges and we're not talking depth of field issues. We're talking about just the lens a little bit soft. But overall, I thought this came out terrific. I was really happy with this shot, the composition and the exposure and the fine details I was able to get out of it. And very, very compact, lightweight setup, right? OM3 with the 75 to 300. I mean, I just take this is the bag I took, right? With, of course, the carbon fiber tripod on sale for $25 right now. But anyway, yeah, I got my 75 to 300 IT32 flash and 60 macro goes right here. And then my OM3, I put my V480 on here for something. So my OM3, just drop that in there with the strap. Hard to do this one-handed, but anyhow, so I got 3 lenses. I'm ready for anything, right? My 12 to 45 with polarizer, 75 to 300, and then my 60 macro with IT32 flash in case I want to do some macro work. In the front pocket, I have my spare battery. It's in a separate pocket, you know, microfiber. And then just a little tabletop tripod strapped to the bottom. And that's my everyday carry, right? Now, when I go out with my friends and family, I found myself using my phone lately more, but typically I did bring my Leica uh, with me. This is what I usually do when I go out with friends and families. I use this camera. And that's what I intend to use the L10 for. But okay, so there's a few shots. I'll share some of the birding shots maybe a little later. Let me get back to the chat because I did some birding with the 75 to 300 in my OM3. A Z5 II would replace my Z52 if I ever wanted to go all full frame. The Z5 II is about the same size. It is, but you're going to lose your you know, extra reach that you get with the APS-C sensor. And I know you like to do a lot of birding, so I don't think that would be a good swap. A Z5 II to a from a Z52 in your case. I'd probably stick with it because you got a little better pixel density. You know, you can get more pixels on the subject uh, because of the crop, right? And hello, Rob, everyone. Interesting discussion. After many years, I'm still discovering so much about Olympus Workspace, and the Olympus Kodak colors is only one aspect, so much more. Yeah, hey, Siegfried, how are you? So yeah, Siegfried is very, very passionate about OM systems and really does a lot of work on his blog. It's the same name as the his user ID. So you can, if you just Google My Olympus OMD, you'll find his blog. But yeah, the colors are just amazing out of the OM system cameras. I really like them. And it's not the primary reason I'm in the Micro Four Thirds system. It's just a really, really nice bonus to have really excellent colors, you know, basically straight out of camera. Uh, you know, I post-process everything, but still I'm starting with a baseline that I already like, and I just have to tweak it a little. Uh, you know, like that image I just showed of that, what is it, a lotus flower or whatever? The colors are just amazing. Okay. And Darko says the XT3 had one. AF killed me with the complicated setup and even then missed a lot of shots. Yeah, it is complicated, the menu system. It's not any better than the XH2. But you know, I kind of had it. I saved some custom settings that I got it to work the way I want it. So I'm happy with the workflow in the XH2. It's just a much bigger camera than I really need out of the Fuji system, right? I just need an XT3 or an XT50. Problem is the XT50 prices are so high now. I should have bought it 6 months ago when I could have got it for like 1100, in the used market. And happy 4th, ATR Bear. Good to see you. And Linda says, I'm late and catching up. RE to XE. I think clamshell design would protect the sensor from dust. So big advantage. Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. It probably would definitely help when putting it in your pocket and stuff. Definitely. And this heat makes me want to visit Skyland Drive. Their visitor center is always 15. Yes, it is cooler in the mountains, definitely. Good to see you, Eric. And I just bought a D200 for less than 50 bucks. It's so lovely. Yeah. It's really nice. I think the most common, I've seen this on a lot of used ones, but the grip can peel off pretty easily. So I need to get some rubber cement or something and glue that back down. But yeah, it's loose, but that's fine. But yeah, really nice handling camera. Really, really good. I was a Nikon shooter for a few years and no complaints about the ergonomics. And D200, cool. Yeah, D200, fun DSLR nostalgia, like my D80. Yep. The D80, I think, uses the same exact sensor, the 10 megapixel CCD. Yes, 10 megapixels on that. And Dupes Dragonflies is raising the bar. That's right. And Robert, you like the Dragonfly. Thank you. Thank you. And a Mark III with 24 megapixel stack sensor and TruePic 11 with dual CF Express slots and improved winter glove friendly shutter release. Yep. That would be definitely worth my money. If it did all of those things, that would be a no-brainer for me to replace my OM1 Mark I. No-brainer. Primarily because the dual CF Express cards would solve some of the buffering issues. I know the Mark II has a really good buffer, but you can easily hit 200 frames at 50 frames per second, right? That's a short 4-second burst, and then your downtime before you can get back up to 50 frames per second is too long. Catch them in flight at all is impressive. They're so unpredictable. Yeah. So there's a lot of pre-focusing, right? Pre-focusing on an area that I know they're going to fly into, and then praying that the tracking will catch it so I can get a few more shots other than the one when they fall into my focus trap. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Nice dragonfly. Thank you. And David says, I don't worry about ISO. Yes. Uh, I don't worry about it too much, but I am, it is what it is, right? You use the ISO, you need to get the exposure. But I always try and squeeze a little extra out if I can, particularly with birding because the very fine feather details, you can lose them very easily. And I just like to. It's not necessary. Like I said, I overthink things sometimes. But I like to know in the back of my head that I did my very best to get the most detail possible out of an image, particularly for birding. So I'm very conscious of shutter speed. So I minimize the motion blur. I try to keep the ISO as low as I can, but using the ISO I need for the shutter speed I'm using. So I'm always going to be in the higher ISOs. But if I can shave a third off, maybe, why not? Yeah, the 75 to 300 is pretty awesome. I was having a really interesting conversation. Oh, yeah, David says it right here with David yesterday about this. But what do you guys think about a 75 to 300 with a fixed f5.6 weather sealed? I think that would do well, right? So if we take, Let me do the, I didn't do the math on this yet though. But if we take 300 millimeters and divide that by 5.6, they could do it. They could do it without making a gigantic lens, right? F5.6 at 300 millimeters only requires a entrance pupil of about 54 millimeters, right? So you could probably have a 58 millimeter filter thread, maybe a 62 millimeter filter thread, right? So 62 millimeter front filter thread, 75 to 300 at f5.6. Because it'd probably have to be 62 to make it weather sealed, because they'd have to, throw some rings and stuff in there. And then the overall length, I don't think that would have to change. It would just have to be thicker. Because the current 75 to 300, it's got to be a 58. Yeah, this has a 58, which makes sense to me. So I think a 5.6 would have to have a 62 millimeter thread and be a little bit bigger in diameter, right? The girth. But I think the overall length can be about the same. Unless they want to improve the optics beyond this. But I don't think they really need to. Maybe use better coatings. So there's a little bit less, softness, like flaring and stuff. Just improve the contrast a little. If they could keep the optics exactly the same, put new coatings, the optical design, the optics would have to change because we're going to use bigger lenses. My God, I would buy one and then make the price point like $1,000, because this one is about 500. Make the price point around 1,000, maybe even 1,200. I would go 1,200 on a lens like that. If they're going to ask $2,000 for it, no, I'm not going to do it. Not for a 5.6 lens, but I would do it for. I would buy it in a heartbeat somewhere south of 1,500. Because the next closest lens is the Olympus 100 to 400, but that's a 6.3, I believe, on the long end, right? Let me double check. That lens is, yeah, it's a 6.3 on the long end, and it's an APS-C lens because they had to make the image circle bigger. The closest thing might be the Panasonic, right? The Panasonic is a 6.3, and this is going to have probably a 72 millimeter filter thread. So what they would need to do, and this is not that big a lens, because this was designed for Micro Four Thirds, so it is physically smaller than the OM system version, substantially so. So if they could make a 75 to 300 constant f5.6, I would even take a variable f5.6, like go f4 to f5.6. That'd be even better, but this lens weighs less than a kilo. So they could make the lens, they could easily make a 75 to 300 with a 5.6 maximum aperture and a weather sealed with a 62 millimeter filter thread to keep it overall size compact. You guys can do it, right? OM Systems, you can do that. I think you could do it. There's nobody else offers anything like that, right? Let me just type in 300 millimeters. What do we get? Because if you look at like the Canon, right, this is basically the same size as our Micro Four Thirds. So it's a little bigger because it's full frame. What's the filter thread size? 58. So here's a 5.6300, 58, but it's 58 millimeters because there's no weather sealing. It has, I think this is the old screw drive motor too. Maybe it has electric motors, but you know, this is a piece of crap lens. Uh, OM Systems, they could do it. They could do it. I think optically, and I would buy the heck out. I would buy that in a heartbeat, assuming the price point is right. By the way, that picture I sent was of Snap. Oh, yeah, yeah, I saw that comment last second, I think, in the stream. Snapdragon Pod. That's cool. That was a cool shot. I never seen those before. And I would, yeah, definitely, right? A 75 to 300 Pro. Because the response David got from the rep, because he went to the show at the local camera store, the rep said the 75 300 is already good. We don't need to make another one. And I'm like, yeah, I agree, it's good. But how about a weather sealed 75 to 300 f5.6? They could do it. F5.6 is not bad. It's better than 6.3. Rob, you are the sunshine on Sunday for so many peeps. Hope you have a great week. Unfortunately, I have to head out. Great live stream. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Always good to see you here. And I owned an Olympus E3 in the day and recently bought a used one for plus or minus 60 bucks. What an amazing camera. Almost 20 years later, another golden oldie is the E30. The E3 has an awesome sensor. Interesting. I think I might have an E30. Let me look what this, I can't remember what, I don't use it. The 4/3 system. I'll take out my 600 sometimes when I go with my 4/3, but yeah. Uh, all I know is the 4/3 cameras that Olympus made were really nice. Like my E620, I think it's an E620. It's really compact and it's just packed with everything and takes beautiful pictures. I can show you a couple. I think it was the E620. Yeah, this one. These are all from my E620. Just beautiful images. Here's a direct comparison here. E620 on the left and a XH2 on the right. I mean, yeah, there's more detail on XH2, but ultimately, really, how much difference is there in those two pictures? Um, but this was the last time I took it out. That I overprocessed it a bit. Let me just look at a straight up shot. This was with the, what lens? The 70 to 300. I don't have that lens anymore. I gave it away. It did okay. It was a little bit soft. This is the 70 to 300. But yeah, those old Olympus DSLRs were really nice little cameras. I 100% agree. All right, let me show you one or two birding pics besides those hummingbirds. Well, let me start with a frog pic. A little tree frog, 300 millimeter, at, well, 420 millimeters on my pro lens. This came out pretty good. It's okay. This, this is a shot that's been done millions of times, right? So, but that one's my version. And then this one here, this is a green heron, I believe. I'm not sure why. Why? Uh, hold on. 1/3200th of a second. This came out all right. I'm not 100% happy with this shot though, but it came out okay. But that was with the 300 Pro. I think this was the 300 Pro also. Yeah. This is a woodpecker of some variety. And it's another frog shot. This is the 60 macro. And I used just a bare flash, the IT32. Just to get some good contrast on them. But the specular is a little high. I didn't have my diffuser, so the speculars are a little bit too much. Another bird shot. This is also with the Pro lens. And okay, this one I took with the 75 to 300. And this is a high-res shot mode. So I'm at 39 megapixels here. So I cropped in a little bit. But yeah, the fine feather details are pretty good. And good focus on the ear. A little bit of loss here in the depth of field. The focal plane is right back here on the eye. But yeah, this came out pretty good. So he was standing still, and there might be a tiny bit of motion blur in the head because it is a high-res shot mode. But overall, I thought it came out pretty good. And then let's see. This is I don't know if this is the same bird or not. There was a couple of them there. He was eating a turtle. He already killed it, but he was trying to eat it, and he was really struggling. After about 10 minutes, I just got tired of shooting it because he wasn't going to eat it. But I did get one shot. That was pretty decent. But yeah, this poor turtle, this bird used its beak to poke through the shell right in the center, just bullseye, and killed it right away. And then was trying to break through the shell to eat it, but he was really having a hard time. And then here's another one, 75 to 300. Excuse me, I'm short a couple hours on sleep, but this came out pretty good. This is not cropped in too much. I just cropped it square, but other than that, there's no cropping here. This is pretty much, I just cut off the left and right side, but this is full resolution. So this came out pretty good. I don't think this was, this is the 75 to 300. Shutter speed's a little bit low, 1/640th of a second. I really should have shot this at like 1/3200th. But I was just trying to minimize the ISO. Because when you shoot at higher ISOs, DxO is awesome, but you can start to lose the very fine feather detail in areas like this, right? And areas between. You can easily lose that fine feather detail as your ISO creeps up. So that's why I was trying to that's why I'm very sensitive to ISO. I mean, ultimately, You got to use the ISO you need, but uh, like David said, you really don't need to worry about it. But when I have the time, because this egret, or I'm sorry, whatever this bird is, was sitting there just wanting to be, like so like jaded to people. Like he didn't so accustomed to people being around. He didn't like fly off. I was probably only about 10 feet away from this bird when I was taking these shots. So I had time to think about my exposure and my settings to try to maximize the image quality. Yeah, herons are brutal. They are. And could be a crane, not David knows what it is. It's a something not crested. It's not crested, but it's something else. I forget what it's called. I could probably uh just Google lens it. Let me see. Um so this is a yellow-crowned night heron. So there you have it. Yellow-crowned yellow-crowned night heron, according to the Google. All right. I think that's all I have. And looks like the questions have kind of slowed down a little bit. So I'll let the stream run for a minute. If you have any other questions or anything you wanted to talk about, let me know. But we are running on, I don't know what time I started. Oh, we still got a few minutes. I'm usually good for a couple hours, but uh, I'd like to get my batters for my D200 and get out and try and shoot a few frames with it. Maybe take that out with my DF. The DF is really another nice camera. If I get back in the Nikon, I might stay in the F mount. I don't know if I really need to go to Z mount for anything. Because I have enough lenses in F mount. I just don't have. I just have my DF and now this D200 and a D80 and a D40. I still got a lot of Nikons, but I wouldn't mind like a D810. That's kind of my other want to have camera is a D810, and I can get those pretty cheap. The Nikon D810. That was kind of I've always wanted that camera because it's a 30 some megapixel full frame and had a lot of nice features, and the image quality I thought was fantastic. And yeah, David will confirm what David is now confirming what Google said earlier. And Shakay said OM1 or OM1 Mark II. I would get the OM1 right now. Just buy an OM1, brand new or used, ideally used for under $1,000. Uh, and then if you can, honestly, wait for the Mark III to come out and see what it offers. You know, I mean, money no object. Wait for the Mark III. If money is a concern, no need to wait. Just get the Mark I right now. I don't see a whole lot of benefit to the Mark II to justify paying 50% more because you'll pay like 1,500 or more for a Mark II, either used or on a good sale. Uh, but if you can wait, see what the Mark III offers. That's what I would do. And hello, Angelo. Good to see you from the Netherlands. And Zimmy says, thank you. We mostly have gray herons. Yep. And did you make photos of the World Cup 2026? No. Uh, No idea where they're playing. I don't follow sports that much. Um, yeah, USA doesn't have any gray herons. Okay. They look gray though, the blue herons, until you pump the saturation up on the on the post processing, right? And my Olympus OMD says, "Have a great week, all, and happy 4th to the U.S. guys." Siegfried, thank you, Siegfried. Thanks for dropping in. It's always good to see you. Um, and definitely check out his blog under the same name. So I think I'll call it here. So you guys, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I may be live tomorrow for my shopping live stream because Tuesday I'm going into DC to do some photo walk with some friends. So I may live stream tomorrow or Wednesday, but most likely tomorrow. Um, so check out my robtrek.com/deal20 uh, page, and so let me put a couple of links here that sponsor everything I do or support everything I do. They might be in the description below. So that's one, and these are photography related. It's not like, you know, it's not like you can go there and get sunscreen or something, right? They're going to be more photography related. So check out those two pages when you order from Amazon. I tried to cherry pick. I added some new stuff yesterday, so there's that. But I'll probably be back tomorrow to really go in detail and find some more deals. And anyhow, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Try to do that every day. Eat healthy and exercise, and you'll have a great life. I want to see you guys for a long time. So thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see you guys all again soon.